Alan Steinfeld for Portal to Ascension, also New Realities Media. And I'm very happy to be talking today to Rey Hernandez. Rey will be part of the upcoming Portal to Ascension conference happening in October 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2019. It's going to be a spectacular event in Southern California. You can look up portaltoascension.org for all the latest information. So I'm very happy to have Rey back here on the show because, Rey, you've been one of the new voices in the UFO field, but you're taking it to a place that I don't think it's gone before. You were one of the founders of the free organization, which studied, 8,000 people in a survey about their UFO experiences, but yes, something like that.
I was going to say in the English language, it was 4,200. And then in the other languages, we had another 3,000 individuals. Right. So a little bit over 7,000.
But you're moving on. It's before you move on, I don't think people even understood the findings of what you came up in the free study. So
yes, I've shot out of a rocket my projects, and again, the vast majority of people that are interested in the field of ufology, they have no idea about our research study, let alone the findings which totally contradict what's circulating in the field about UFO contactees, experiencers, and abductees. It totally contradicts it, but we're taking the next step.
But I'm just saying, people have yet to integrate the valuable findings of that survey, and you're moving on. You're just leaving, and you're just.
I'm almost 63 years old. One could spend, the next 30 years studying, UFOs, but the whole aspect of the topic of UFOs is just one component of the contact modalities and consciousness. The reason why we did that study, let me backtrack a little bit. First of all, what we did with the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Experience for Research study, that was a collaboration of approximately 15 individuals. 10 of these individuals were PhD academics, and the others were researchers, non-academic researchers, people like Mary Rodwell, Kathy Martin, Barbara Lamb, Leo Sprinkle had been retired for many, many years. He was helping with us as well. But then we had many, many other PhDs that were involved. And so what we started 5 years ago was the world's first comprehensive, worldwide academic research study of individuals that have seen UFOs and have had contact with non-human intelligence. Right. We had very little data on that phenomenon. And so
there was little surveys. There was the Martin Stoner. There was the, what's the name? Buchwald's. But they were very small.
The Martin Stoner survey only had 50 individuals,
right,
and it had 50 questions, right, and all 50 were abductees. And what we learned from our massive research study was that 1/3 identified themselves as abductees. Mm-hmm. The other 2/3 never had an abduction. So basically the Martin Stoner approach was very tiny, only had 50 people, had 50 questions. Our surveys had 600 quantitative questions,
right,
written,
and thousands of participants, which makes it
and we also had written responses to 70 open-ended questions,
right,
and we wound up with more than 10,000 pages in responses to those 70 questions. So it was a massive study. Took 5 years to initiate it, to finish it.
I would say it is the most comprehensive study to date of the UFO experience, and thank you for that hard work.
Yeah, no, it's we could talk about that very, very briefly.
Yeah, briefly, because I think what you have coming up puts it into a bigger picture.
Yeah, it's That was my wife, the one that
The one that initiated you, right?
the one that started it all, that disappeared right in front of me with our dog, who was returned totally healed.
The dog too was also what started it, right?
That's how the experiences started for me. Yeah. And she called 4 times. She called down her quote unquote angels, and these massive UFOs would appear, and twice seen by her family members. So there she went back there.
Well, no, I think it's good that she's part of this conversation because she's the one that started the whole thing. Because
Yeah, no, it was really
sick and dying, and she prayed, and boom, there was your awakening. Incredible.
It was. Let me sort of give a very quick backdrop to all of this,
and also why you think it contradicts previous studies. So yeah.
Oh no, the data shows it. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, my experience, initial experience, started March 4th of 2012. Before that, I had been an academic pretty much for many years. I went to Cornell for a master's and Berkeley for a PhD, and I taught at various universities close to where you live, the New School for Social Research and the City University of New York, City College.
What did you teach there?
Urban planning.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and that was back in the early 80s. No, I'm sorry, that was the late 80s.
You never, ever even thought about a UFO, right?
No. Everyone that's going to be attending this conference here were a bunch of kooks, you know. I had zero interest in these topics. And then we had an experience in our living room where this energy being appeared after my wife was praying all night. And we were going to be euthanizing our dog.
The one that just walked by.
No, a different one.
Oh, a different dog. Okay.
And so basically this energy being made my wife disappear in front of me, and the dog put me to sleep. And then when I woke up, that dog was totally paralyzed, that we were going to be euthanizing, was running around the whole house. And then shortly thereafter, my wife would be calling her angels because she thought that what she saw was angelic. And then after 15 minutes of prayer, these big gigantic UFOs would appear. And this happened at least 5 times. And then she even saw 3 human-looking beings, 7 feet to 8 feet tall, dressed in white monk's robes that floated right in front of her. And then she's had other experiences. She told me about 3 months ago that she used to play with little people when she was young.
But she doesn't consider it a UFO type of, or does she now?
Well, I mean, it's somewhat complex because she sees it from a deeply spiritual and religious sense. That she's,
well, that's sort of where you're going in your next project in a way, though, right?
Yes, correct.
Right.
But from her is, she was born and raised in Mexico, a hardcore Catholic, going to church, twice a week, that type of thing. And so while, she stopped going to church, occasionally every 2 months or so, she goes, she prays, it's sort of her way of communicating with God, Right. But anyway, and then my experiences my individual experiences began in August of 2012, where I called down a UFO to give it thanks for healing our dog, and I wanted to see what my wife had been communicating with. And lo and behold, 15 minutes later, this huge, gigantic UAP appeared right on top of my next door neighbor's house. It was the size of a football field, a small football stadium, and that was witnessed by my daughter and 3 friends. And then
that's huge. I mean, that is a huge event.
It was huge. It was 100 meters tall by 600 meters back.
It's like the end of Close Encounters, right? With the big ship.
It was something. Yes, that's a very good comparison. Yeah. And it was literally right on top of my next door neighbor's house, the bottom of it, 30 feet away from us. And that was for 45 minutes. And that was, telepathic communication, that sort of thing. And so then it began about 2 years of nonstop paranormal type of experiences, which led me to drink a certain period there, because it was just
if you don't understand what's happening, you know, like a lot of people, they want to avoid it. It's actually traumatizing.
Correct. It was traumatizing, but that's what our survey showed, that initially 37% of the people viewed their experiences as traumatic and negative. But then later on in life, after many, many years, 95% said it was actually positive,
I
not
have
negative.
to admit that's my story as well. I think I
Yeah.
was in that survey, and
Yep.
you can't help but have it affect your life in a way that expands your consciousnesses, which I think
Well, that's one of the survey findings. I'll go into that in a couple of minutes, but basically, I'll skip over a whole lot of
I know,
experiences. It was
because
like
it's
2.5
massive
years.
and so important, and
Yeah,
it's in your book.
some of it, very little is in the book, not much.
And, well, it's Beyond UFOs, which is a very
Beyond
valuable
UFOs.
book. You can see how many place marks I have in it. All right.
Thank you. And anyway, I had an experience where I was taken out of body while I was driving my car, and I was brought to a matrix reality, and there I was shown the contact modalities and its relationship to consciousness, and I was given tons of information, including information about physics and you know, our quantum hologram nature of our reality, and et cetera, et cetera. So when I came out and I was told what to do, you know, it wasn't a voice, but it was just a download of information. So I knew that all of what I call the contact modalities, which are all the different ways that humans are piercing the veil and having contact with non-human intelligence, that it's all part of one phenomenon. So near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFO contact, remote viewing, ghosts and spirits, hallucinogenic contact, channeling, ghosts and spirits, et cetera, they are all one phenomenon that needs to be studied as a whole and not separately. But yet,
wait, when you say it's one phenomena, how would you define that one phenomena?
okay, the basic integral component there is the manipulation of space-time. That
Okay.
these are multidimensional experiences.
Okay. So the basic one phenomena is that it's a gestalt of a multiverse, that this world is obviously not what we think it is, and ghosts, out of body, astral project, all that are part of a bigger dimensional reality.
Correct. It's a multidimensional reality.
But we're actually
Yep.
a part of that multidimensional reality. We've just been educated and brainwashed to think we're this limited person, right?
Correct. We've been taught to think in a materialistic way, that materialism is primary, but in fact, consciousness is primary. And all of them, of the professors and academics in this new organization, and even in the free organization, all of us have the hypothesis that our consciousness is primary. And so what we're, so I knew right off the bat that the whole aspect of UFOs, that's just one component. But in order for us to be able to compare the UFO contact experiencer with, for example, near-death experiencer, you needed to have data about the UFO contact experience. Right? And we didn't have that. We just had hundreds and hundreds of anecdotal case studies, but no unifying data that was asked to thousands of people all over the world. And also the type of questions that were previously asked, like I informed you before, Kathy Martin's study was basically materialist ufology from an abductee.
What does that mean, materialistic ufology?
Well, what we're talking about is that these experiences were basically experience of abduction and people taken aboard a craft, a physical craft. Okay. Now, the questions that we ask in a research study, we do ask those type of questions, but we ask much more expansive type of questions. Okay. So now that we've got that data, now we're able to compare it with OBEs and NDEs, etc. See what are the commonalities. And we've identified just with NDE phenomenon over 50 variables that both of them have in common. Okay, but let me go now what our research findings were, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it in our conference.
Actually, I just want to say that a lot of just to add a little bit, some of the leading ufologists have been onto this for a while, like Jacques Vallée said he would be very disappointed if UFOs turned out to just be beings from another planet. That would be totally disappointing because there's so much of a psychic, paranormal,
Correct.
what they call high strangeness element to UFOs. If it was just people and ships coming and saying hello, it wouldn't have any of that. So, and my work in the last couple of years to try find out and make that connection. So you're doing a lot of.
Well, we've got the data that has demonstrated that Jacques Vallée's hypothesis is correct.
Which
We've validated Vallée.
Right.
Let me go over 4 major findings. There's literally hundreds of them, but just the big picture of what's going on. We wanted to find out whether these experiences were perceived as positive, negative, or neutral. And we asked that question in more than 25 different ways. We also asked that question for the different types of beings or entities that people were seeing and having experiences with. So we even had results for that question for the different types of entities. And what we gathered was that overall, initially, 37% of the people initially viewed their experiences as negative. But
this
then
is the same findings you have from the UFO study, that 77.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's what I'm telling you now is from from the book.
Oh, from the UFO study, not
Yeah.
from the anomalous studies. Okay.
No, we haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Which is beginning to do that.
Okay. So you're talking about
yeah.
the UFO
So,
study. Okay.
yeah. What we also found out was that 1/3 of the people reported an abduction. 2/3 did not have an abduction. We also found out that the more experiences you had, the more positive your experience became.
Uh-huh.
Okay? We also found out that that even among the abductees, 70% of the abductees don't call themselves abductees. They call themselves contactees, okay? Because they transcended that early fear. And now they see themselves as a co-equal.
Right. If you call yourself an abductee, you're calling yourself a victim of something else.
Correct. So what we actually found out in our research study was that 95% of these people did not view their experiences as negative. Okay. Now, again, this is 4,200 people from over 100 countries. And we asked that question in many, many different ways, okay? So we got the same validation in many, many different ways. Even, for example, for the short grays, that the typical, UFO website, all the bullshit that's circulating on the YouTube, insinuates that these short grays are totally evil, negative entities. But, well, guess what? There was about 1,200 people that had experiences with the short grays, and only 10.5% of these individuals stated that their experiences were negative.
Okay. How many people saw the short grays? Grays?
It was about 1,200 individuals.
So only about what is that? 15% of your survey, right?
No. The total survey was, well, we did a cutoff in our survey at 3,200.
Oh, so about a third of that then. Okay.
About a third had encounters, but actually they were not the number one type of being. The number one type of being seen was the energy being. 55% of the people saw energy beings.
Okay.
And again, that was highly positive. Number 2, the human looking being, again, very highly positive. And that was 52% of the individuals. Okay. And so the short grays came out number 3. And then number 4 was the spirits and the ghosts type of entities. So that was number 1, that these experiences were not primarily negative, that they were overwhelmingly positive. They were not negative. Now, number 2, these experiences were overwhelmingly paranormal, okay? While there were some physical elements to it, you might have seen a UFO, you might have seen a physical being, okay? The rest of your experiences, the vast majority of your experiences were paranormal in nature.
Okay? Now define paranormal, because
let me go over what that specific is. Which paranormal is actually normal, but basically 80% of these individuals had out-of-body experiences. Okay, 50% had medical healings. by
Okay.
a non-human intelligence. Okay. Near-death experiences, 37% had near-death experiences. Okay.
They had near-death experiences before their ET contact.
Before and after.
Oh, okay.
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 Both. Being brought to a matrix reality, 50%.
What does that mean, matrix reality?
Okay, like for example, like in my case, okay, you're in your physical reality and all of a sudden you pop out of your body and you're brought like another reality, but it's not like it's like Jodie Foster's movie Contact.
Right. Great movie. Yes.
Yes, that's the best analogy to it. So
Well,
it's
can I
not,
ask you,
it's
what's the percentage of people having paranormal experiences? What was that? What,
overall 95%.
having paranormal experiences along with their ET experiences, or as an
Well,
aspect of their
well,
ET?
it's one component of it, but
Okay.
what we wanted to look at was most of materialist nuts and bolts ufology views this as a materialist nuts and bolts phenomenon. Okay,
Right.
and what we discovered was that the overwhelming percent of these people's experiences were not nuts and bolts material type of experiences, but they were actually multi-dimensional, quote unquote paranormal. They were having the contact modalities.
Mhm.
Okay, orbs, seeing orbs, not in a photo, but real live orbs, 67%. Okay, seeing
Mhm.
ghosts and spirits, again another 2/3. Communicating with a deceased person, it was like 60%. Okay,
Really?
we're talking huge numbers. So what we're having is the UFO contact phenomenon, just like the NDE phenomena, but more the UFO contact phenomena, we suspect, because the question has never been asked to the NDE experiencers. Triggers the contact, many of the contact modalities.
Wait,
It's a
let me
triggering
absorb that statement. I think that's a very important statement. The UFO experience triggers the paranormal awakening. But I do have to say, a lot of people have paranormal experience and they don't have the ET
Well,
experience.
that's why we need to study what we're doing for our next project.
Right.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? They're sort of like the ETs are another level
Well,
of
the ETs
consciousness.
are part of the contact modalities. They're not the only one. They're a
No, but I'm
component
just
of it.
trying to understand why, if some people have paranormal experiences, telepathy or seeing ghosts, they don't go into the ET reality. I
Well,
mean,
look at my case. Okay,
yeah.
in my case, I've only seen UFOs 3 times.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Twice very up close.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, and that was because I called them down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've only tried like 5 times. There's no
Yeah.
need for me to do it anymore.
Let's do it next
So,
time I meet you.
but
Okay.
yet I've had hundreds of quote unquote paranormal experiences.
Like out of body, all that, huh?
Yes, correct. Okay, and then in terms of seeing a non-human intelligence, only once with that energy being in my living room.
Okay. So, but it does seem like what you're saying is that the ET experience does open up people to the paranormal.
Yes, and also near-death experience as well, but that's never been studied, that relationship. For example, okay, there's a very well-known medical doctor who has lectured on near-death experiences, okay? She was a medical doctor in the Chicago area for almost 40 years. And she was the one that coined the term spiritually transformative experiences.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so she talked about after her NDE, when she returned to work at her hospital, what did she begin to see? Spirits, deceased entities. Okay. 6 months ago, I talked to another doctor, medical doctor, in her early 60s. Okay. She had a near-death experience. Guess what happened to her after she returned back to work at her hospital? Same thing.
But let me
Began
ask you one
those
question.
spirits.
Could it be, and this is kind of philosophical, that we're vibrating humans at another level and these experiences are becoming more widespread, more popular, more common?
Well, this type of question is the question that we're going to be addressing in our next research study.
Okay, okay.
What we wanted to do with the Dr. Edgar Mitchell free experiencer research study is to focus on UFO contact experiencers. Okay.
Right.
So number 2 major finding was that these experiences that they're having were primarily quote unquote paranormal in nature. Okay.
I know.
ESP, precognition, you know, all of a sudden, my wife is all of a sudden knew I had a tumor in my back. Knew that if we went on a 3-hour trip with our car, that the engine was going to explode. I mean,
and she never had these things before,
no,
did she?
no, no, no.
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying is very common, but it's anecdotal information. We
Right.
were able to demonstrate that over 50% of the people check that box. Okay. After you've had your UFO contact experiences, did you suddenly begin to have precognition,
Yeah.
abilities? 50% check that box. So
Right.
you see where I'm getting at, Alan, is that that these experiences are primarily paranormal in nature.
But the other thing, I'm looking at the causative factor, perhaps that
Well, that's not something that we could address at this point.
No, but I'm just philosophizing here
Yeah.
with you that perhaps the ET experience, UFO experience, opens up a part of our brains that is precognitive.
Well, this is a hypothesis.
Yeah.
Edgar Mitchell spoke about his quantum hologram theory of consciousness, and that is that our brain basically serves as a filter.
Right.
That our conscious reality, our brain sort of dampens information from, our cosmology, the 0-point energy fields, the Akashic records, whatever, from tapping into our consciousness.
Eben Alexander, that neurosurgeon, he talks about the brain being shutting things out as opposed to opening. He says that very same thing.
Oh yeah, no. There's literally hundreds of scientists that that have explored that topic, that have discussed that topic. It's not a new topic, but it's something that we're going to be approaching now from an academic level in our new research study. So anyway, that's number 2. Okay, the paranormal aspects of it. Number 1 is that it's overwhelmingly positive. Number 2, the paranormal. Number 3, these experiences transform the individuals. Totally transform their worldview and their their psychological profile. Okay.
What does that mean, psychological profile?
Well, let me give you examples. Dr. Kenneth Ring in 1988, he did one of the very few statistical academic research studies on UFO contact experiencers. What he did is he compared 85 people that had primarily abduction type of experiences with 85 people that had NDE type of experiences.
This was the Omega Project, right?
Yeah, correct. That's the title of it, the Omega Project in 1988. And one of the primary areas that he focused on was, how did these people change? How were they before and how they are after? And what we discovered was that these people went in a caterpillar and out came a butterfly. Okay. Let me go over.
To be more specific, what that really means in terms of.
No, that's what I'm going to tell you now. I'm going to tell you now. We asked over 60 questions. What I'm going to tell you is just a couple of these. Okay.
Yes.
People no longer fear death.
Okay.
People became much more spiritual, less religious. All of a sudden, money was not important in their life. Becoming famous was not important in their life. Okay. Getting ahead in their job, was not important in their life. Okay. Ecological. All of a sudden, they became, ecologically friendly. Tree huggers, they don't throw cigarette butts out in the streets. They're not drinking.
This was the Kenneth Ring study for both abductees and NDEs, and
Correct.
They both had that in common.
Yeah, his study showed that both groups, the abductees and the NDE, the near-death experiencers, changed in exactly the same way.
I see.
85% of them, 85% changed the exact same way. Okay, it's like you're talking to a new person with their whole worldview, their psychological profile. Okay, more spiritual, more loving, much more loving to the fellow human being. They became more consciously aware. They had a mission in life. Okay. They were
I think a lot of them also are more fascinated by science, the leading science. I don't know if that was one of your questions, but.
Well, he didn't ask that question, but we did ask that question overall in the survey. Okay.
Anyway, like Kenneth Ring, let's get back to Kenneth Ring.
Okay. So we duplicated those questions, and what did we find out? Exactly 85% of these people totally changed. It's like a new human came out of it, a butterfly. Okay. So our conclusion from this was that these experiences are totally transforming these human beings for the positive. And which leads to, you know, the speculation is, why aren't non-human intelligence doing this to everybody in the world? Because if this happened to everyone in the world, we wouldn't have starvation. We wouldn't have exploitation. We wouldn't have wars, you
So
know?
why are they not doing this to
Well,
everyone?
we don't have an answer to that question.
But
Only thing we can,
maybe it's a slow process where, you know, it takes time to integrate, and maybe some people wouldn't change even if they were exposed. And it does happen sometimes where people become addicts or addictions or even suicidal as a result of their
well,
UFO.
there is a 5% of these people that still remain traumatized,
Right,
but
right,
it's a
right.
small group. But these
Okay,
are people that never made that transition, that
right,
never became awakened to
right.
this true nature of our reality. Okay.
Okay.
And so that was the third major finding. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, the
Let me
fourth,
just ask you, I know you're on a roll, but
yeah,
why do you think, though, it doesn't happen to everyone? Or, I mean, why do you think they're not doing that? Just your own.
again, I could only speculate,
Yeah,
you know,
what do you
'cause
speculate? I'm not saying you're right, but
what I speculate is that whatever this intelligence is that's interacting with us,
Yeah.
we think of our timeline, our own timeline,
Mhm.
okay, and we like want them to hurry up. At least the experiencers, the people that have
Right,
changed, okay.
right,
Now their timeline might be like the next 100 years or so, you know,
right.
but we know that things are beginning, or not beginning, they have been accelerating. At
Yeah.
least that's what the experiencers are saying. The
Mm.
reason why things are accelerating is because what non-human intelligence has been telling individuals now for quite a while
Mm.
is that we are destroying our planet, okay?
Mhm.
And if we continue with this path, we're going to be destroying ourselves.
Right, right.
So
And that
that's,
is what's happening. I
yeah,
mean,
that's now more than ever with all these recent, you know, global warming aspects of it. So that's one aspect. The other aspect, the other major message that they're telling individuals is that we need to evolve. We need to transform. We need to become more spiritual, because right now we're barbaric. You know, in the last century, our wars killed over 100, you know, million human beings.
well, look at the gun violence that's like out of control. It's
Yeah,
out of,
yeah. So that's one of the message, that
yeah.
we need to become more spiritual, that we need to become more loving. That's the word that is used frequently, more loving. And guess what? When people return from NDEs, what's the major source? That the entity that people associated as God, you know, when they have a life review, okay?
Yeah.
The main message that this entity conveys to the NDE experiencer is that, look, you know, whatever your religion you are, that's not important. You know, material, you know, wealth is not important. What you need to know, learn is how to love. That's number one, how to love. Okay, so it's similar messages that are being given with the NDE experience and the UFO contact experience.
That
Obviously,
is a very interesting study, very important. And you're right. It's about something that isn't of this world, the material world. It's below the surface. And
well,
I
I
think,
sort of have my hypotheses as to all of that.
okay,
Um,
okay, we'll get to
but,
that.
but, but
Okay.
that's a very, very lengthy discussion.
No, no, I want to have that discussion. We have
Well,
all
you're not going to
night.
be able to get it in an hour because,
No, but
you know,
I am, that's the discussion I think is the most important thing.
well,
But
yes, that's what we're going to be going with our next study. Now,
okay,
let me go to the fourth major finding, okay?
okay.
The fourth major finding is that these experiences involve a manipulation of space-time,
Mhm.
okay? When people are being brought to a matrix reality, that's manipulation of space-time, okay? When individuals' consciousness are going through a wall, you know,
Mhm.
when individuals are being shown their past lives,
Mhm.
they're shown future events. And we're
Mhm.
not talking about NDEs, we're talking about UFO contact experiencers.
Yeah.
Roughly a third of the people were shown future events.
Mhm.
Another, you know, very large number, like 25%, were shown past events. And then
Uh-huh.
when you add, you know, the being brought to a matrix reality and these other aspects, clearly you reach the hypotheses that this involves a manipulation of space-time, and in turn, that leads you to a hypothesis that we're dealing with a multi-dimensional phenomenon. Okay,
Yes.
and again, that involves all of the different contact modalities. That's what they have in common.
I do have to say about the multidimensional phenomena, in my experience, it's hard to understand this manipulation of space-time, because we're so brainwashed to thinking in linear terms. And when I was frozen and taken sort of out of time and brought back to the same place, I'm still don't understand how that's possible.
Well, there is no space and there is no time.
Ultimately, but relatively, we live, we're having this conversation in time and space, although it is non-local with the internet, but yes.
Yeah, these are the fascinating aspects that we need to explore. And again, I'm going to be talking about this.
But maybe I'm just thinking, a couple of 100 years ago, people couldn't understand how someone can have a conversation in two different parts of the world. That would be beyond their conception of worldview. So,
well, you're pushing me to the next step here, okay? but bear with me a couple of minutes here.
Okay, I'm just very excited about your research. So, I mean, and I'm also find it valuable for projects I'm working on. So go ahead.
Okay, so now with the 820 pages book that you showed before, okay?
Beyond UFOs.
That only has some of our data, okay? That does not have our entire database, okay, of how people were answering. There's still the opportunity for people to go dig into that data, researchers, statisticians, to dig into that data. So, but basically, we have now a better idea of what is really happening to the UFO contact experiencer. And what really is happening is not the BS circulating in these UFO conferences, okay?
What is the BS? Can you tell us what that is?
The materialist perspective, okay?
Right, so
for example,
in the UFO conferences, they're saying you're abducted by ETs, you're being operated, genetic, and you're saying something else is going on.
Okay, for example, once you begin talking about paranormal aspects, that's pseudoscience, okay? Once you begin talking about multidimensional aspects, now that's pseudoscience, okay? And once you begin talking about consciousness, that's pseudoscience, okay?
Right, But and this is what some of the mainstream ufologists don't understand. Maybe they're not evolved on a spiritual level to understand that.
Or I mean, they're not fully aware even of quantum physics and our cosmology. We have 3 PhD physicists in our organization, okay?
But this is what's changing about the study of ufology. You could see even at something like Contact in the Desert, there's a lot more of a spiritual element to the presentations there. So
no, it's evolving, and it will evolve because it's the true nature of our reality, okay? Let me get into this whole aspect of the multiverse, okay?
Okay, good.
We have 3 PhD physicists in our organization. One is Rudy Shield, who was a research astronomer, astrophysicist at Harvard University. The other one is Claude Swanson, who received a PhD in physics from Princeton University. The other is this other man who studied at Caltech, who remains anonymous, okay? So at the highest level of physics, all of them have told me that if you get a PhD in theoretical physics, okay, you're going to be an adherent, a believer to a multiverse theory, okay? That we don't live in one, dimension, one reality. We live in a multiverse. But so these theoretical physicists, all of these Albert Einsteins, they know this. But the regular person, these so-called researchers who have all the answers that go to these UFO conferences, they're calling this pseudoscience, but yet all these theoretical physicists are saying the total opposite. Okay?
Well, you should tell them UFOs themselves are pseudoscience. I mean, they exist in another realm to begin with.
That's what our data is showing. Okay, that what Jacques Vallée said 40 years ago, and Alan Hynek also said to the last years of his life, that these are both material and psychic experiences. Just like Vallée, he came around, okay, and many other individuals, like So we totally confirmed that perspective. So now that we've got this UFO data, we've revealed that the UFO data demonstrates that this is totally radical from what is circulating in mainstream ufology. Now we can begin to integrate, research in the contact modalities, because now we've got data about the UFO contact.
I just want to read that quote from Jacques Vallée's book, Dimensions. He says,
We have it in our book.
Oh, I just thought for people listening, he says,
Gotcha.
those are physical manifestations that simply cannot be understood apart from their psychic and symbolic reality. What we see here is not an alien invasion. It's a spiritual system that acts on humans and uses humans. Dimension.
Correct.
His idea is. Okay.
I would totally agree with that statement. That's what our data reveals.
Okay.
Again, this is not Rey Hernandez's opinion.
No,
This is what 4,200 individuals have demonstrated in our research study.
Right.
And so now, myself and many of the academics and researchers in the free organization and this new organization, which is titled Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, CCRI. Okay.
Okay, so the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute.
Correct, CCRI.
Would you say free is evolving into CCRI?
Correct. It's like free was the necessary first step in order for us to study the UFO contact phenomenon, because we had almost no data, okay, on that phenomenon. And
well, I'm just curious, I just want to ask you a question. Do you think it was important, maybe directed by this divine intelligence, to coalesce the paranormal experiences with what you did first as ET UFO experience and then move on to that, because there's no way to have brought together the psychic paranormal experiences within that same study? So I think you're right.
No, correct, because the focus of that initial first research study was individuals that have seen UFOs and have had contact with non-human intelligence.
But I'm just saying, I think it was a kind of planned study on some level to bring attention to the multidimensional aspect of consciousness.
Well, I planned that from the very beginning.
But not just by you, but by the ETs themselves, possibly.
Well, they were the one that gave me that experience, that vision, where I physically was taught these things,
And you saw a wheel, didn't you, in that vision, a wheel of the contact?
I was in a big, gigantic wheel in the center of this wheel with numerous spokes, and each side and inside the different spoke was a video, and each video was a contact modality. And I looked at it and I knew what it was. It wasn't that I was being taught what this was. It's like instant information, instant knowledge.
Amazing. Okay, so this new organization,
this new organization, let me just tell you some of the folks involved.
Yeah.
And you probably know most of them. Okay, yeah. Obviously Rudy Shields from Harvard, Jeffrey Long, who is one of the world's leading near-death experience researchers, Dr. Jeffrey Long. He's a medical oncologist. He's going to be retiring at the end of the year, and he's going to be the co-chair for this research study. Okay. So he's bringing all of his data on near-death experiences. He has over 10,000 experiencers, NDE experiencers that have completed his surveys. He also has almost 5,000 OBE experiencers that completed his OBE survey. Mm-hmm. So he's bringing all of that data to the table, and he agreed to be the co-chair of our research committee. Okay, Gary Schwartz, a professor of psychology at Yale, now at University of Arizona. Mm-hmm. He's 75 years old, and for the last 20 years, he's been studying mediumship. So we're talking the cream of the crop so far. Right. John Climo, a professor of over 45 years of psychology, who focused mainly on the paranormal, and he was the co-chair of Free Study. So he's going to be doing the same role with with this new organization. Dr. Claude Swanson, PhD in physics from Princeton. Dr. Bob Davis, PhD in neuroscience from Ohio State, and was a professor for 35 years of neuroscience at the State University of New York. Dr. Michael Grosso, I'm sure you know who he is.
A very brilliant writer. I've never met him, but I enjoy his insights. Very good.
Yes. He was a professor of philosophy, got a PhD in philosophy from Columbia University. He's now affiliated with the University of Virginia, their Division of Perceptual Studies. This was
I didn't know the Division of Perceptual Studies.
Yeah, that was the group that Ian Stevenson started.
Oh, right. That's the past life stuff.
The past lives, and also Dr. Bruce Grayson on the near-death experiences, okay. And Dr. Edward Kelly. who's studying, and Dr. Bruce Tucker. All of these are medical doctors, okay? Not
Right.
just Joe Schmo here. They're full professors in the medical school at the University of Virginia, okay?
Right.
So
Okay.
Michael Grosso is affiliated with the University of Virginia, their division of perceptual studies.
And a great writer. I mean,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
So obviously, you know, Dr. Jeffrey Mishloff. He got a PhD in parapsychology from
Jeffrey,
Berkeley.
yes. He
Doc,
actually inspired me to do programs like this, Jeffrey's, because
okay.
he
Well,
was
I mean, he's a hardcore member of this group now. Dr. John Alexander, who got a PhD in, did his PhD on NDEs and became the second president of the near-death experience.
But he wasn't also a military, that John
That
Alexander.
was 40 years ago. Okay.
But he's still, I think, connected somehow
well,
in there, right?
the point is that here's a man that did his dissertation on NDEs, and he's also been the president of the Near Death Studies Association and also the president of the International Remote Viewers Association over the last 20 years. Also, he's been going all around the world visiting shamans.
Right.
And you know, and researching hallucinogens. Okay, so you know, this is a man that has talked about the need to be able to study the contact modalities in an interrelated.
So with all these people, what do you expect?
I could go on and on and on with the names.
People can just look. You have a website, right, for the new.
Yeah, we're going to be building a website. It should be done by December 1st.
Contact and Consciousness Research Institute.
Yeah. And so anyway, here's the purpose of
yeah, because I want to know you're gathering great people together. Everyone you mentioned is really brilliant and
okay. Now here's the thing. Here's the thing, Alan. Very, very important. Okay, all of these people and like another 7 more that I didn't mention yet, including Dean Radin. Okay.
Oh, Dean Radin. He's the foremost researcher on parapsychology and paranormal. Yeah.
Almost all of these individuals hypothesize that consciousness is primary and not our material reality. That's a heavy concept to begin with, okay? Wow. Now, all of these individuals independently have speculated that all of the contact modalities are somehow interrelated, okay? So they've all spoken about these concepts among themselves. So I approached each of these individuals over the last 5 years. You know, have you written an article about this? How they all might be interrelated? No. Has anyone else written articles about this? No. Has anyone conducted a formal academic research study on this? No. So then I approached each of them. I said, I am going to be setting up an organization to be able for the first time to address this question. And here's the question. What is the relationship between consciousness, our cosmology, which is, you know, the physical nature of our reality, okay, and contact with non-human intelligence via the contact modalities? So in other words, what is the relationship between consciousness and contact with non-human intelligence via the contact modalities? Okay. Out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, UFO, ghosts and spirits, channeling, hallucinogenic journeys, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
So you don't have the answer for that, or you have your own ideas, but they're going to come back with you, each in their own.
Yes, we're going to be meeting approximately for the first year. Okay, and we're going to be discussing how do you begin to study that question, to address that question, okay? So people might respond by saying, look, you know, we might want to do an academic research study, not just of the UFO contact experiencers, but the experiencers of the contact modalities. And our primary focus is going to be on the major experiencers, people that have had repeated OBEs, that have had a near-death experience, that have seen UFOs, have seen different types of physical entities, okay, that were brought to other realities, okay, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many of these major experiencers that have had.
Do you know, I think it's a lot more of the population than we even realize, I would say.
Well, that's what we're going to be. We suspect that, yes, that a good portion of the world has had these experiences.
I agree.
But these are taboo topics that no one talks about except to a very close family member. Okay.
Right.
And I know that just by, for example, in my house, I always raise these questions, and lo and behold, one out of every 2 or 3 people that comes to my house tells me one of these crazy stories. Okay,
So
I had
I think you're right. At least 50 or maybe 75% of the world population has had some kind of
well,
contact
what we're
experience.
going to be doing is what we're
I'm just throwing that.
initially tossing around is doing something similar to what we did with Free, which is like a 5-year academic research study, which is based upon quantitative surveys, qualitative surveys, a metadata analysis of the data on the contact modalities.
Right.
So we
But
could,
I just think the surveys attract people who already had those experiences. I would also go to the man on the street, the person on the street, and
well,
just
these are all possibilities. I'm just throwing out things that people
ask
are,
passerbys, hey, have
yeah.
you had any of these experiences?
Yeah, these are all things that are being tossed around.
Yeah.
And then the
I
other
can do
thing
that for
is
you.
to do in-depth interviews of major experiencers, okay?
Mhm.
Like I said before, people that have had most of the contact modalities, okay?
You know
Like,
who I did interview was Anita Marjani, who had an incredible near-death experience. I asked her if she saw ET aliens in that experience, and she said she did glimpse these other realities in that near-death experience state. So anyway, she might be. Go ahead.
yeah,
Continue.
yeah, no, I mean, you talk to that's why Jeffrey Long is interested in what we're doing,
Yeah.
because he's had individuals that have had, paranormal experiences are brought to our realities independent of that. They've had, precognition. They've had psychokinesis. They're seeing paranormal things in their home, things moving around, they've seen ghosts and spirits. And this is just within the NDE phenomenon, okay? So we want to be able to understand, why are these people having pretty much many of these contact modalities after they've an NDE. After an NDE experience, all of a sudden, it's like their whole arena, the whole universe is opened up to the multiverse. Okay, so that's what our organization is going to be doing. And now, before that, we're going to be publishing a book that's going to be published under the name of this new organization. The new book is titled A Greater Reality, The New Paradigm of Consciousness, the Paranormal, and the Contact Modalities. And I believe you're writing a chapter for that book.
I am. I'm writing a chapter, I'll say, about the hero's journey, which combines all these aspects into a sort of evolutionary awakening for the participant, for the experiencer of that. So
Okay.
that's
Well, let me tell you what that book is about. Okay. That book is to introduce the reader on the topic of the contact modalities, that this is not just solely NDEs, this is not solely UFOs, this is not solely OBEs, but that these are all integrated experiences. Now, roughly 1/4 of our book is going to be written by these PhD academics, okay? We're also going to have approximately 40 articles written by researchers and experiencers, okay? By non-PhD researchers and experiencers, and again focusing on this big picture of the relationship between consciousness, okay, the paranormal and the contact modalities via their individual experiences.
right.
So you'll be having people say, okay, when I was young, I had all this paranormal experiences, poltergeist experiences, you name it, et cetera, and then I saw UFO when I was 10 years old, and I interacted with these little beings. And then I was brought to other realities. And then I began having spontaneous out-of-body experiences. So it's going to be these types of
Let me
stories.
just ask you a question.
Yeah.
I know you have a lot to say still, but if we re-educated children to be in that contact mode, well, I think it would be a common occurrence. We wouldn't have to even ask this question. Everybody would be talking about, but we have to get away from those cultural limitations that stop people from thinking they're multidimensional. This is an evolution that you're part of.
What we're doing, Alan, is this new research study is going to be establishing a new paradigm of our reality. It's going to be educating humanity to the true nature of our reality. And the true nature of our reality is multidimensional, and that consciousness and the experiencer, excuse me, consciousness and the experiencer is the key to begin to get a better understanding of this multidimensional reality, and involves a reality filled with non-human intelligence, okay, that we are interacting with in many different levels. So, but we just don't understand.
Especially in our sleep. I mean, we don't even know what we're dreaming and connecting with in our sleep. The Aborigines did. Okay.
Yeah, that's another component. You know, lucid dreams. You know,
Exactly.
where people are having these very, very vivid, lengthy dreams that's not segmented. You know, that's continuous. You know, for a very, very long time. You know, that's the, you know, the definition of a lucid dream. You know.
This is very exciting work, Ray. So,
Well, it's paradigm changing, and but the problem here is, Alan, is that very few people actually understand it. I mean, when you mention the topic that consciousness is primary, I mean, how many people really understand that concept? Let alone the aspect of that the contact modalities are interrelated, that we live in a multi-dimensional reality. So we're talking a lot of high strangeness to even the people in ufology.
well, you know who does believe that are the non-dual people, the Sands. You know about that.
Yes.
They're not. But the interesting thing about those people, they're not ready to awaken to the UFO contact modalities.
To that, not the UFO
Very
contact,
limited
to the
view.
contact modalities. Correct. Yeah.
That's the problem with people talking about consciousness. They think it's all
I
consciousness.
mean, we had a discussion a little bit earlier, a couple of days ago, and I told you from my perspective, and I'm very blunt in my statements, is that the Deepak Chopra is totally clueless. Okay.
Well, he's a good friend of mine, but
Here's my point. You could talk about consciousness to, you know, for the next 40 years. But if you don't then begin to talk about the aspect of non-human intelligence and the contact modalities, from my perspective, you've got your blinders on. You're totally clueless.
I do agree with that. If you're talking about consciousness, and you include these other things, it actually is an expansion of consciousness.
Of course. That's what
someone just says everything is consciousness, and they don't
working.
include the non-human factor or the paranormal, then they're
you have your blinders on. It's like a horse in Central Park. They walk them around with these blinders, right? So they can't see to the side, okay? That's how these people
That's what we have to do, is bring the idea of consciousness as an expanding human phenomena to the mainstream academics.
What we're doing is we're bringing in the topic of consciousness to the fields of the contact modalities, because many NDE experiencers know about this, okay, but they never fully integrated, you know, these two concepts. Now we're taking it one step further. We're taking it to the entire contact modalities as a possible unified phenomenon. Now that is really,
but it's still all consciousness. That's the thing. This is what I think people mention. They're just saying, well, what's the difference? It's all consciousness anyway, right?
Yeah, but did Chopra ever talk about UFOs?
He talked to me about. I did talk about it on his show. He invited me on Sirius Radio, and he was open, but he
did he ever talk about near-death experiences? Did he ever talk about life reviews?
No, but I think about UFOs and contact. I think people have to have an experience in order to, like, you would not be into any of this, right, Ray? If
no. I mean, I don't hold it against him. You know.
No, but I'm just saying
that's not my point.
It's based on their personal experience.
Correct. Well, that's what we're going to be articulating. What we're articulating is that individuals are having these experiences, you know, by huge numbers, but no one talks about it. What we want to do is be able to bring it out in the open as a common phenomenon.
Well, I agree. If someone has a paranormal experience, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, because then other people will share their paranormal, a UFO or contact or lucid dream.
And again, getting back to earlier issues that we discussed before, all of these experiences, what they do is all of them are transformative, okay? All of a sudden, someone that has an out-of-body experience, that totally changes your mindset. Okay, knowing that you're not just a physical entity, that you're actually a spiritual entity, okay? The aspect of consciousness being introduced to you via spontaneous OBE or
Yeah.
NDE or even mystical meditation. You're meditating, and all of a sudden you pop out of your body, and you're like, what the hell was that all about,
You know,
And
I do think Deepak Chopra is getting people prepared as focusing on consciousness for that expansion. You know, I think everyone's at their own place of evolution and working with what they know. So how do we talk to people who haven't had the experience? I mean, you can
well,
present the facts.
here's what I'm doing now,
Yeah.
Alan, in our organization, okay?
Yes.
We're trying to academically, scientifically, to document the contact modalities as an integrated phenomenon. No one has ever done that, okay? Once we've documented the components, just like we've documented with the UFO contact experiencer,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
We need to be able to do this to the experiencers of the contact modalities, okay? Once we've done that, then we could begin to talk about the big picture, all those fundamental questions that you were asking earlier, okay?
Yeah, let's go in. What is the big picture? How will all these connect? I mean,
Well, here's sort of my hypothesis,
yeah, I want to hear yours.
which is shared by many of these researchers in this organization. Okay, my hypothesis is very similar to Tom Campbell's hypothesis that we live in a multi-dimensional reality that can be described as sort of like um, I don't want to call it um, a computer generated reality, okay? But a reality where programming is taking place by a universal mind, okay? That we are being sent out to lead experiences, bring the experiences back to the universal mind, and they get reprogrammed again. We get reincarnated again for similar journeys, okay?
Okay.
And similar to Campbell, I just learned about this the other day, but I've always had it in my mind, okay? And he articulated it so clearly. It was like, my goodness, it was like a revelation, because I always said to myself, the UFO contact experiencers were repeatedly told by non-human intelligence about the need to become more spiritual and the need to become more loving, okay?
Right.
And I always knew that was the main focus of the NDE contact experiencer. Okay, so why is non-human intelligence, either via through a life review or the entity that is seen as God in an NTE, and the UFO contact non-human intelligence that are providing this information to the experiencers, why are they so similar? Okay, and then I heard Campbell talk about the concept of entropy. Okay, that that the role of cosmology, of physics, of quantum physics, is to reduce entropy. Okay, and then there's a whole science behind that. So if you have love, okay, that reduces friction and turmoil, hostility, anger, problems in life. So if you lead a life full with love, your karma is going to be significantly reduced. Okay, so what that does is it begins to minimize entropy of your soul, of your spirit. Okay, again, very similar to the ancient spiritual teachings in terms of karma. Okay, and so thus the more times that you evolve with more love, okay, it'll get to the point that the entropy will be almost reduced to zero. Okay, and
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 then
again,
what? What happens to us? What's our evolution?
well, again, this is all speculation, but
I know we're just
but a hypothesis that I'm tossing around is that we then, as a conscious seed of the universal mind, we return back to the universal mind. We integrate. We're always integrated to the universal mind, but then there's no need to be able to evolve and to learn and to experience. Okay, then we integrate as God. Okay, So, that's my hypothesis, that we live in a simulated reality, that the simulated reality involves a universal mind, that there's a programmer behind it. You could think of it a lot of in terms of all the recent theories that are taking place in physics on computer simulation in terms of artificial intelligence. And there's many PhD scientists, including 3 or 4 from MIT, that suspect that our reality is a simulated reality. Okay.
Well, I think the UFO,
including a Nobel Prize winner. Okay.
Who's that? I wonder.
Oh goodness, I totally forgot his name.
That's okay.
I have it down.
Think the ET phenomena is
okay. I don't use the term ET. I don't use ET because
the non-human intelligence. Let's call it that. Non-human intelligence is upgrading our awareness of the simulation.
To awaken us to the true nature of our reality.
Right, and we're seeing but we're
which is essentially to awaken us to become more spiritual, more loving, because that's what's happening to 85% of the UFO contact experience.
And I think a lot of the planet, we're at a crisis point where we can either go towards more love or more hate. I mean, it's always like that, but it seems quite edge now. But I do
a threshold and a message that literally a very large chunk of the experiencers have received, let's say maybe 25%, is that if humanity does not change, that there will be a thinning.
A what?
A thinning.
A thinning of humanity.
A thinning of humanity. This happened with my wife one time. My wife doesn't have a computer. She doesn't have the internet. She doesn't read New Age stuff. She doesn't read ufology stuff. She's totally unaware of these concepts. So one day, out of her voice came like a robot, a channeled voice, and it says that I need to become more spiritual, because very soon we're going to be at a crisis point, okay, where human population might be thinned out. There will be millions of deaths. We're going to be living like Native Americans. We're not going to be having medical doctors to rip us off. We're going to be living in communes. We're going to be sharing. We're going to be having different social structures. We're going to become more communicative and loving with each other. And if we don't change, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be like a reboot of humanity, like a thinning of humanity, to reboot it again, to see if we evolve differently now. And so it's roughly a very large percent of the messages that individuals are receiving have to be something along those lines.
I get it. Are you getting a little tired because you're?
No.
I just want to ask you, what is then? You're going to write this book with your new organization, but how are we going to reach a lot of people, not just through the book, maybe interviews like that, but what's your plan for really changing the worldviews of the population? Okay.
What I hope to do with this, 5-year academic research study, okay, is to fully document this phenomenon, which has never been documented before, just like the UFO contact phenomenon, except now we're talking about the contact modalities as being integrated, okay? Now, whatever is going to take place, it's going to be a long-term agenda. It's not something that you could do in 20 years, okay? It's going to be generational in nature, because right now, who really, is acceptance of this topic of consciousness, okay?
Right.
Of the multiverse, multidimensional. Little by little, it's coming in vogue, especially as mainstream science, mainstream physics begins to talk a lot of these concepts, okay? Mm-hmm. And so even within the field of ufology, as you well know, it's slowly evolving in that direction, okay? We're not anywhere near that yet, but we're moving in that direction. So I see what we're doing is basically setting the paradigm. Okay, we're defining the paradigm, and so it's later on it'll be sort of like a little Bible, that will document and reference this new paradigm. So then future generations, or folks that are like young, teenagers now, they'll be able to carry on the mantle to continue with this study and the education of humanity, that our reality is much more profound.
What do you think about the indigenous people, where the non-human intelligence of plants and animals and spirits are a lot more available to them, and we in the technical modern world have forgotten about that? Is that something we should look to, I think?
Well, I mean, what we're doing, I believe, is we're reversing the wheel back to spirituality and to indigenous cultures, because all of the ancient indigenous cultures, they all spoke about these things, you know. Even the cultures that were word of mouth, that was brought down by generations.
It doesn't mean we have to throw out our technology, but we have to find a way to integrate the material and spiritual world.
It's integrating modern science with spirituality. That's what we're doing. Okay,
that's what we have to find the way. Yes,
and the way that we're doing it through our research study is we're doing it through the experiencer. Okay, because all of us in our organization believe that the experiencer of the contact modalities holds the key that will unlock that door to have a better understanding of consciousness. Because you could talk consciousness at the level of Deepak Chopra till the wind blows over, you know, and that's not going to be revealing, you know, what's happening.
Well, for some people it's revealing, as far as if they don't understand who they are as consciousness. That's, most people don't even understand.
It's like you're going to the Empire State Building and all of a sudden you're huffing and puffing after you've gone up 5 flights, okay? But yet there's still, you know, 100 more flights to go, okay? That's the analogy I would make, that this phenomenon is so complex,
It is. You could say it's all consciousness, but it's the non-human intelligence is like a whole radio dial span, and we're just tuned into one channel.
Yeah, we're just slowly being primed to this multidimensional phenomenon.
Right, so when this becomes the predominant worldview, the new paradigm, how will that change our world? What's your vision of that?
Well, I think we'll become more loving.
Yeah,
we'll be those questions that Kenneth Ring asked. Okay, except it won't be done at selective individuals like it's happening now. Okay, it's being done all over the world. And so if people all of a sudden become more loving, more caring to each other, more ecological, they don't care about material wealth, they don't care about economic exploitation, okay? You think capitalism is going to continue to exist at the state that we're at, okay? You think, you know, the dogmatic religions are going to continue at the level that we've got it now, okay? I could go on with hundreds of different...
No, I know, and that's the vision of a future I see too.
Yeah, so that's what I think. If we make the correct decisions and if we continue to evolve in that direction, that's where we're going to be heading, I think.
It's up to each individual.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any more direct guidance from non-human intelligence, or are they kind of working through you all the time?
I rarely discuss these things, you know, on open air. But basically, a lot of the information I get is on a Saturday morning. I wake up.
That's your conference call.
How the book got written, okay? The book got written because I woke up on Saturday morning. And I had all of the chapters, all of the authors. And then I sent it to Mary and Rudy, Mary Rodwell and Dr. Rudy Shields, the other co-founders of Free. And then they said, oh my God, Ray, this is absolutely brilliant. Go with it. And so I immediately started calling everybody, you know, Kathy, you know, I want you to write a chapter about information received by non-human intelligence, you know, John Klimo and Susan Manowich. I want you to write a chapter about science and physics downloads, you know, Reverend Michael Carter.
You're on a mission, Ray. This is like a destiny for you, and it's the most important thing. I mean, I'm in alignment. I'm doing my own little piece of that, but you're pulling a big piece together, a big chunk of this together.
Well, it's the fundamental questions that need to be asked. We started with ufology. Why? Because we had very little data of that phenomenon. Now we know it's totally different what people believe it to be. Okay, totally fundamentally. And this is not Rey Hernandez's speculation. This is what 4,200 people are telling us. Okay. And
Amazing.
and so we want to be able to do the same thing, but for the bigger picture. And so yes, I am being guided. Yes, I am receiving information, but I'd rather not go over the details of that because
That's okay. That's
then
okay.
people, start throwing darts at you,
No, it's already out there, but it's no,
It,
it's a,
it, it, it is what it is, Alan. It is what it is.
I know, and people can be loving and open, and kind without having a contact modality as well.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. No, 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 definitely, definitely. But
So
at
you
least,
can,
people need to understand that I have to certainly work on those things. I,
right.
I fail. I fail on numerous of those boxes.
Maybe this
And
is all for you.
who knows? Because we're all individual minds here.
I think it's great work. So, what is the future of this organization? How can people
Well, the,
contribute?
the,
Or
the the organization, we're going to be establishing a new website. Our existing website is consciousnessandcontact.org. Consciousnessandcontact.org. We still have the old free website there. We're not going to discontinue that. We're just going to basically superimpose the new organization on top of the free data. And so we're not going to be just a ufology organization. It's going to be consciousness and the contact modalities. And also the email to reach me is info@experiencer.org. Info@experiencer.org. And
I would be interested if you could include a whole indigenous subpopulation, not sub, but like a way indigenous consciousness sees their relationship to spirit, and have that as one aspect of the survey, and
yeah, I mean, what the issue, the confining issue we have here is that we're going to be a 501c3, right?
okay.
The free organization was able to raise minimal funding. Okay, all of it was self-funding among the members. Okay,
Hmm.
this organization, if we don't get funding, it's going to be very limited what we're able to do.
Well, what do you plan on doing? You want to do the survey? What do you limited? Because what do you need the money for?
Okay, for example, okay,
Yeah.
part of this agenda of this organization, we're going to be developing a short-term academic research study, which is like a 5-year academic research study, to see what we can do given limited funds, which is basically new surveys, getting the existing data that's already out there, like Jeffrey Long's data on NDE experiencers, OBE experiencers, and be able to mush all that data together with the UFO contact experiencers, whatever data is out there in remote viewing, that's out there on ayahuasca, DMT, LSD,
When you
ghost
say
assessment.
data, you want to know what people's experiences were and how they expanded in those
Yeah,
situations.
if there's anything that has been documented statistically, okay, because to do this at a qualitative fashion, then it's very, very different, because then it's like the UFO phenomenon to document the thousands of books that have been written by
Well,
contact experts.
it's massive. What you're trying to do then is a massive
Yes,
study.
it's what we're doing is we're laying the basics, the foundation. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things that we want to do, which I didn't talk about,
Mhm.
while the data is coming in, and while we're crunching the data, and while we're doing the the um, um, the data mining, okay, and comparing the data from the different fields, we also going to be developing a long-term business plan for this model, okay, for this paradigm. For example, let me give you an illustration. If Elon Musk, who's talked about the multiverse, he's talked about simulation reality, he's talked about, non-human intelligence, ETs, UFOs and stuff like that, okay? So if Elon Musk all of a sudden gives us $100 million, okay, what can be done with $100 million? So we want to be able to develop a long-term, let's say like a 50-year academic research study. Okay, we have $100 million. What can be done with $100 million? And what we can do is we could do multinational research among different countries, different universities, among different disciplines, neuroscientists, philosophers, psychologists, physicists, et cetera, et cetera. We could also do laboratory work, putting electrodes on people and stuff, doing dream work studies of people, continuing that work. So we want to be able to give a a paper, let's say a 50-page paper or 100-page paper, to Elon Musk and say, look, Elon, this is how we can continue to explore this phenomenon, but for generations of the future. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's also going to be part of this agenda.
And this taken together and the results of this study will change the paradigm of the population, because it'll prove that we are actually all multidimensional, whether we know it or not. I mean,
just like, what was the impact of Raymond Moody's near-death books? Life
it
after
opened
life.
people up. It became, did he coin that term, NDE?
He coined that term, yeah.
Well, now everyone knows that.
Oprah Winfrey, it's on radio shows, it's on TV talk shows, and it's not taboo like it was years ago.
No. And it's being considered, some of academics and materialists say, no, it's a phenomenon of the brain, but most people are saying, well, yeah, of course, your spirit leaves your body and goes on. But
but at least he opened up the avenues for discussions.
No, you're right. That's very important.
What we're going to be doing out of this is opening up the avenue of discussions for the contact modalities as being integrated, not as separate. Because before, right now, the way things are, the NDE folks will have nothing to do with ufology.
I know.
They think all those ufology folks are a bunch of nuts. Okay, Kenneth Ring will not touch ufology. Okay,
but he did in his study, Kenneth Ring. But he still
mainstream, ufology.
Now, how will your study change that integration from NDEs to UFOs? How will they bring them together?
Okay, because the researchers in our organization hypothesize that they're all interrelated, and so because of that initial hypothesis, we're going to be developing research studies to focus how possibly they are interrelated.
Well, how do you think that? How do you connect the dots there? How do you?
Okay, for example, let's have a very brief discussion of some of the similarities of NDEs and UFO contact.
Yes.
Okay, both of them involve a manipulation of space-time, correct?
Right.
Okay, both of them involve contact with non-human intelligence. Okay.
Yeah.
Communication, is it mouth to mouth?
Telepathic.
For both, it's telepathic. Okay. For the NDE phenomenon, the top 3 types of entities that people are seeing are the energy being, human-looking being, and spirits. Okay. Those are 3 out of the top 4 for UFO contact.
Right.
3 out of the top 4.
The other big thing, of course, is that when people come back, they're shifted from a UFO experience or an NDE. They are.
Well, yeah, that's another component, the transformation, how these people change. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing is the ESP and psychic and precognition skills. Also seeing energy auras around people. Okay. For both groups. Wearing watches, electronic watches. Do you know that both groups demonstrate the same responses?
What's the response?
Difficulty wearing electronic watches?
I never could wear a watch myself, so yeah.
Okay. The NDE experiencers said the same thing.
Really?
Okay?
Is it because their vibration is this like the bottom?
I don't know. We could hypothesize.
I think my guess is there's a shift in vibration to both groups.
That's a very, valuable hypothesis,
that's part of what happens in all these contact modalities. I think in order to have a contact modality type experience, you have to be at a certain level of vibration.
Okay. Now, let me just continue with a couple of more of these things. Okay.
Please.
Both groups involve receiving information about the future. For example, in an NDE, you're receiving information about events of a particular individual. You're going to have, children. It's going to be a boy. Your husband's going to divorce you, in 5 years from now. People are told these very, very specific things. And hundreds of these people are being told things of the future. Okay. Same thing with UFOs. People are saying if they're shown visions of the destruction of our planet. If you don't change, your ways, this is what your planet is going to look like. Okay.
They're
As a
also shown utopian visions too sometimes.
yeah, what they are, they're probabilities. They're being shown
Right,
probabilities.
right.
And again, that gets into multiverse, quantum physics in terms of
Right.
probabilities. Okay. Also, people are being shown visions of the past. Okay. With the UFO aspect of it, people are being shown a reincarnation in past lives. They're being brought to other realities where they had a past life. Okay. There's the UFO contact experiences, roughly a third of them. Okay. I could tell you story after story of on that topic. Okay. Now, in an NDE contact phenomenon, people are given a life review. What happens in a life review? You're shown your past.
Right.
You relive your past.
So maybe what I'm getting from everything you're saying,
And there's more. There's like
but
a
I'm
whole
just
bunch of
getting, instead of dividing up contact modalities into certain types of structures, the idea that human consciousness, as you're saying, includes a much bigger scope of experiences, that includes all these, or the possibility of all,
because the basic foundation is consciousness.
because that's the basic foundation of who we are, and no one's ever told us that.
Correct. That's what the NDE folks are in their little basket. NDEs and
Right.
like that horse in Central Park. Okay,
Right.
the ufology folks, the mainstream materialist ufology, Roswell, you know, Rendlesham Forest, Tic Tac, whatever, Richard Elizondo. These are all the hot topics in ufology. Okay, and to me, it's like clueless, you know, and
so your work is really about the integration of who we are as human beings. And,
correct. The integration of who we are as human beings through the lens of the experiencer of the contact modalities.
But the experiencer is what I'm saying is everyone. They just don't know it.
Correct. Yes. Yes, because in our survey, 95% of the people stated they've had paranormal experiences.
Right, but everyone, whether they've had it or not, is an experiencer of multidimensional realities. They just don't remember it or are aware of it.
Yeah, well, this is what needs to be explored. But if you talk to people one-on-one, you know, they will tell you some weird experience.
Of course,
I don't know if it was real or not, that type of thing. Everybody's got at least one story, you know?
And I love those. I ask people, tell me your strange stories, you know?
Yeah, me too. I do it all the time.
In an adult education class, I teach on consciousness sometimes. I ask people for their story. And everyone has a strange synchronicity or something.
Yeah. So
and it's stuff they never forget. They have
but it's also stuff that they rarely talk to anyone else about.
Yes, but the thing is, they never forget it. Isn't that amazing? You have
because it's a fundamental component of their life.
Yeah, and I think this work that you're doing, if we could amplify the importance of that, people will start to realize who they are in terms of consciousness.
They're who they really are is that they're a multidimensional, you know, being, intelligence, living a temporary physical reality. Okay, that's the essence of it, you know.
Well, that makes everything more exciting, doesn't it? If you just thought you were a material.
Imagine the old Rey Hernandez, you know, who's an IRS tax attorney, had all this academic background as a material rationalist, an atheist. Okay, imagine that life. You know that.
I don't know. Tell me, what was
I'm going to be 80 years old on my deathbed. I'm going to be shivering in my pants, scared of death. You know, I'm just going to be buried and that's it. You know, versus now when my father died, I was actually happy. I was celebrating. You know, it shows a totally different mindset.
But was the old Rey Hernandez happy with his life?
I had no life. I was a robot. We were most of us are robots.
That's all you knew, right? That's
all you knew. You were a robot that's been trained to lead a structured robotic life.
And there's still people, you know, I bet, from that life that are still doing that, right?
Oh, the almost everybody, you know.
But the blinders, like you say, have been taken off.
Yeah, and
now, isn't the world much more exciting?
Oh my goodness, it's and that's why I didn't want to stay in that muck of ufology. of
Right.
mainstream materialist ufology because that's a muck. Okay, I was being buried in quicksand. Okay, but to me, it's like, okay, I've been there, done that. I did what I had to do, which is to define, this phenomenon for the first time ever. We don't understand it. We don't know it. It's completely oblivious to us, the complexities of it. But at least we have a better understanding of the
And
UFO.
it was a very important study because I think ufology, UFETs are going to have a much more of a daily
Oh
impact
yeah,
on
no,
the
it's
population.
accelerating. It's accelerating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the point that I'm getting at is that, to me, ufology is I wasn't going to be wasting the next 30 years of my life, you know.
Well, there was no more. There's what you're saying is there was no more space you could go within that field.
Well, we could continue in that very limited field of
Right.
ufology, but that's not the big question that I was always interested in from the very beginning. From the
Right.
very beginning, because my experience, the major experience where I was shown all this, the revelation, that was in May of 2013. That was a little bit over a year after my initial experience. So it was after that experience. People don't know. Free got started within 3 days of that.
Wait. So I know you've done amazing work just in a short time, whereas many people have been behind those blinders doing the same thing for 20, 30 years. But at this upcoming conference and the conferences you will be speaking at, like Portal to Ascension, happening in October 4th, 5th, and 6th, what will you be talking about in terms of this bigger overview?
Well, what I'll be doing is I'll be going over the past data, okay, on the
Free
UFO
data. The
contact
free
experience,
data.
the free data, okay, and I'll be going into a lot of the details about that, okay. But what I'm going to be doing is transitioning that. The reason that data was important, not because of the ufology aspects of it, okay, because that's just one cog in this wheel, okay. And then I want to be able to introduce to the audience members about this concept of the contact modalities and its relationship with consciousness, and
Okay.
the need to be able to focus on the big picture.
So at this upcoming Ascension, Portal to Ascension, why are you speaking there? What's the relationship to Ascension or the idea of ascending that your
Well,
work
this
involves?
is what this is all about, okay. um, Near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFO contact experiences. It's all about being awakened to ascending to the true nature of our reality. Okay, so it's ascending to a new level of your spiritual awareness. That's what all of this is all about at its essence.
Great. So if people want to support the organization, contribute, what should they do about this new organization?
Yeah, we have on our website consciousnessandcontact.org, which is the old free organization, which is going to transition to this new one. We have a PayPal button
Okay.
that you could click there and donate to it.
And if people have suggestions or ideas about other aspects of contact modality, could they reach you at that website?
Yes, and our email is info@experiencer.org, info@experiencer.org. Also, you can go to that website and download several free chapters from our book. We have 3 chapters available for free. One is chapter 1, which is 120 pages, and that is a summary of our research data. So it's 120 pages, a lot of stuff. The other one is chapter 6, written by Dr. Joseph Burks and Preston Dennett. And that's the chapter on UFO medical healings, where we go over the data and 12 case studies of UFO medical healings. And then we have the conclusion that was written by Brad Steiger, which is the dean of the paranormal. As you know, he wrote 220 books on the paranormal, and he wrote the conclusion pretty much on his deathbed a few weeks before he died.
Oh.
And so that was a very important conclusion where he agreed with the information I was given.
The
Take a look at
conclusion
it.
in the Beyond UFO book.
Yeah, take a look at the conclusion written by
I
Brad
see.
Steiger.
Opening the potential avenues for future research. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to
So
read.
Brad Steiger was light years ahead of everyone. Okay, he knew that the contact modalities needed to be studied as an integral phenomenon. because he
Right.
wrote about all the contact modalities throughout his life.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, this is exciting work, Ray. You are a pioneer at the forefront of this consciousness movement, and I appreciate your dedication, because what you're doing, I feel, for the UFO field and the non-human intelligence is, I mean, you've said, is bringing it all together to show us there's more to us as human beings than our religion, our media, our education, our parents have ever told us. We have a potential to realize our multidimensional awareness, and the more people that talk about this and use telepathy and tap into their intuitive nature and their feeling sense, and of course their loving sense, expands the possibilities for all human beings, that we can live on a greater, more harmonious planet.
Yeah, and here's the key to all of this, Alan. We're not doing this with metaphysics, okay? With woo-woo science, you know, that because I was criticized by several mainstream ufologists that are out there, very well known. We sent them copies of that book, and I heard them on the air saying this is woo-woo science, you know, and totally criticizing our study. But
Well,
those
just
people.
mentioning UFOs to people is woo-woo. It depends what level of woo-woo you're
Well,
at.
we're talking about mainstream materialist
Okay.
ufologists, okay? Now, what they fail to understand is that what we're doing is hardcore academic research by real academic scientists. The people that are criticizing this, they're not even PhDs and they're not even scientists. Okay, we've got all these PhDs from numerous disciplines, and we're doing it via science. That's the key to it
Well,
all.
you know, I do think that hardcore materialistic view as a beginning step for some people is what they need, because that's what they know of reality.
That's how my experience started. You know,
Right, but then we need to keep
we need
evolving.
to evolve. I mean, to me, I evolved after,
But
6
some
months,
people
because
need to get it.
because it was through experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, if I just seen a UFO like I saw with my daughter and my 3 friends, or hear my wife's stories of the UFOs that she would call down, and we've had nothing else, then I would be into the materialist,
Right.
mainstream paradigm.
I think the more we talk about this, the shift of vibrational fields, the more it gets into the collective awareness of people, the more they start to realize, hey, that has happened to me. I have had multidimensional experiences.
Yeah, it's the field of not only ufology, but the field of near-death experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, the field of hallucinogenic studies. All these medical doctors that are studying hallucinogens. Okay.
My question about hallucinogenic,
All of it. My point, Alan, is that all of these fields are still, in many ways, materialistic fields. They haven't incorporated the consciousness aspect of it, and just the fields of overall the scientific aspects of consciousness. Okay, it's still very materialistic. Okay, but so what we're doing with our work is also within those fields, in incorporating the whole aspect of consciousness into it.
Right. No, because some people, ayahuasca is a big thing these days, but some people also put on the ayahuasca blinders and think that's their doorway to contact, where, let's open up that field, because I think people can get limited even into their ayahuasca experience.
No, they have to see that that what that does is the ayahuasca, the speculation that's out there is that it dampens your brain being a total filter. It opens up the pores of your brain to the information fields of our reality.
Right, but I think we have to come back to center, and then also, is my belief, do it on our own efforts to open that. Once once you've shown the door, we have to go through at our own power, so it becomes a living, continuous experience instead of just a weekend.
A lot of that really is it's education. It's documentation.
It's important for people to have those experiences to break them out of the mode that this is.
Just like you go to an NDE conference. I went to an NDE conference, maybe it was about 3.5 years ago. Okay. And those people were totally clueless of the connection between NDEs and UFOs and all of the other contact modalities. And
Well, because it's still
they
their
didn't see the
experience.
connection.
It's phenomenal to have those kind of NDE. So, you know, you have to integrate that. You have to.
Yeah, but it's being changed, because here you have one of the pioneers of NDE research.
Mhm.
They're saying after I interviewed, this is Dr. Jeffrey Long, hey Ray, the work that you're doing, I've thought about it for many, many years. And I also speculate that as well. How can I join your group, your organization, So here you have a
Anita
pioneer.
Morzani, too, is very open when I talk to her about that. And she's one of the top in the field. Do you know her work?
Who's this?
Anita
Yes, of
Morzani?
course. Yeah. But she's not a researcher. She's an
No,
experiencer.
but she's an experiencer.
And she's an experiencer. No,
And
but
she's
there's
a very open experience.
but experiencers of NDEs are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere.
I know, but they're not
Some are
all
famous
open.
and some are
They're
not.
What's
Well,
that?
what she is she's very well known because of her book.
But she's also very open to what we're talking about, because I've talked to her about it.
Yeah, no, most NDE experiencers are very open, but a lot of the original mainstream researchers, they're slowly opening up to it. For example, Kenneth Ring, to open up the book, look in the back of the book.
Right.
Okay.
In the back of the book, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, the cover, the back cover.
Oh, the back cover, yeah.
Do you see Kenneth Ring's name there?
Rudy Shield, Claude Swanson. Oh yeah, Omega.
Okay. Here's Kenneth Ring, someone who says he will not go anywhere near the field of ufology, endorsing our book. Okay.
Congratulations to Edgar Mitchell's foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you've got Dr. Jeffrey Long, one of the pioneer researchers on NDEs,
So
becoming a former researcher of our group. So it's slowly changing, Alan. It's slowly.
You're connecting the dots, which is what's needed now.
Well, they've all speculated about this connection. It's not like Rey Hernandez invented it. There are literally hundreds.
I think it's important because, especially in the field I was studying, UFOs and the paranormal, it keeps coming up, the high strangeness. It's like, that's a recurring theme. Once you've had those experiences, so many more things open up. At least that's my angle on it, that there's a connection to a bigger picture that I don't think anyone really understands. You're connecting the dots, but we'll see what that picture looks like once all the dots are connected.
The first component of it is going to be a book titled A Greater Reality. Okay? The name of the book is A Greater Reality, the New Paradigm of Consciousness, the Paranormal, and the Modalities. That'll be published in May of next year.
I just was talking to a medium. He was a medium seeing people cross over on the other side. And now he's suddenly getting these non-human intelligences coming to him also. Yeah. And he said, wow, this is a lot more evolved than the old mediumship stuff.
Yes. It opens up, as we were talking about before, it opens you up to the contact modalities. Once your brain begins to have little holes in it, all of a sudden, all this information
from reality has holes in it, yeah.
Correct. The dualistic nature of our reality just totally comes creeping in.
We need to be educated differently as children to start to be aware.
That's one of the consequences of our research that we're going to be talking about. I'm sure eventually later on is that children at a young age, like for example, many indigenous cultures, okay, they would have a child that would be having tons of paranormal experiences, okay, that would have visions all the time. Well, guess what? That child was put to live with the shaman, okay? Mm-hmm. Became an apprentice, okay? So it was integrated as part of their culture.
Look what happens with our children. At the time they become verbal, they're taught the ABCs, 1, 2, 3. There's this logical thinking that comes in that negates any creative, intuitive aspect. So
Yeah, yeah,
You know, we have to change the education
yeah.
system and develop right brain creative.
Instead of
Creativity is, I want to throw that in there, is a contact modality. Artistic creation.
most definitely, creativity involves thinking outside the box.
That's
Okay.
right. It is a
And
contact modality.
The old Rey Hernandez was stuck in the muck of that box. Okay.
Well,
And
let's
so
get him out of that box.
what these experiences did is pretty much get me totally out of that box and become more creative. That's the proper word for it.
Well,
You're more expansive.
that is
But
a major
but
contact
that's the
modality.
definition of an experiencer
Right.
of each of these different contact modalities.
Yeah.
All of them are having
Maybe
paranormal.
what about contact modalities as a creator, if that's not there. I mean,
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
All right. I think we could go on and on for another couple hours, but I think this is a lot to digest.
Yeah, I think you have a better sense
I
of,
do. And I
of
realize
the
how,
mission of this organization.
no, I think it's important because no one has connected the dots. You're absolutely right. It comes up in different modalities, but let's see what it looks like when it's all packed into one ball of wax, you know? Let's see.
Well, we're still not going to be unpacking it there, Alan,
No,
okay?
but once it's unpacked, we'll
It's
pack
still
it
going to
back
be a
together.
riddle, but at least we'll have a better understanding of its complexities.
I think it might lead to something unsuspected that we can't see at this moment that will
Yeah.
be revealed as we do this investigation.
Yeah,
It'll
yeah.
lead to more and more.
Well, that's the purpose of doing the research, is to be able to get data, to document the phenomenon, and to get new revelations that we previously never had. Just like with the UFO contact data. You know, who would have known that such large numbers were being medically healed?
Right. And that 95% of the people felt that it was a positive experience, right?
Positive experience. Also, the being brought to a matrix reality. You know, like half the people. Who would have, hypothesized that? We knew that it was happening. You know, Mary Rodwell, Kathy Martin, Leo Sprinkle, Barbara Lamb, and a lot of these researchers that work with UFO contact experiencers, on a daily basis for 30 years. But they never had the data. They didn't know how large it was.
No, it's great. So let's see where it goes. Let's do updates. I'll see you at the upcoming conference. And if you have any revelations, come back on my show. We'll do it right here. New Realities Portal to Ascension. Thank you, Rey Hernandez, or what's your whole name? Renario.
That's the name, but nobody calls me that. Not even my mother.
I'll call you Rey. Rey Hernandez, ladies and gentlemen, the founder of the Free Experiences Organization and his new organization, Contact and Consciousness.
Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, CCRI.
Okay, we'll look forward to the updates and the revelations. And when you're ready to share your private experiences, we'll talk about that too. Okay?
Well, you know about,
No, I know, but any new ones. I know about the one,
gotcha.
But if you have like suddenly a flash in the middle of the night, I'd love to talk.
All right, we'll do. All right, Alan.
All right. Thanks, Rey. I really appreciate your effort and hard work there.
You're very welcome. Thank you. See you in a few short weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Neil Gore, for making this Portal to Ascension interview possible. Again, Portal to Ascension, October 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2019, Southern California. Look up portalsascension.org, and you'll meet me and Rey, the JJ and Desiree Hertog, Whitley Strieber, some really fantastic people. Actually, Whitley himself, who's an old-time contactee, is in that multi-dimensional understanding. He really is. So, so many people are moving in that direction beyond their individual contact modalities to a vaster field of what you're trying to integrate here.
Most
All right, Rey. Thanks. See you soon. Thanks.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay, thanks.